Donald Trump's campaign for the 2016 Republican presidential nomination has been dominated by controversial comments that he's made. The real estate mogul has insulted Muslims, he's insulted refugees, Mexicans, and blacks. We call them Trumpisms, and we've got the top 5 for you. Well, just last week, Donald Trump said he wants a database to track Muslims in the U.S. He was widely criticized on social media using the hashtag MuslimID. The 69-year-old hit out at Muslims again, saying a state with a large Arab population, referring to New Jersey, celebrated the 9/11 attacks, contrary to the facts, of course. In June, Donald Trump labeled Mexicans as drug dealers, people who brought in crime to the United States. He even called them rapists. When a dozen odd white attendees at a campaign kicked and punched a black protester, Donald Trump thought it was absolutely fine behavior. He said maybe he should have been roughed up because of what he was doing. That's according to him. Well, most recently, the Republican presidential contender even mocked a disabled reporter. Shihab Ratansi joining us from Washington, D.C. to first tell us about this incident that involved the reporter. Shihab, what happened?
Well, this all stems from one of Donald Trump's claims that he witnessed thousands of people celebrating on the banks of New Jersey as the World Trade Center was destroyed on 9/11. And to bolster his claim, he used a report in the Washington Post that did say that police were investigating allegations of celebrations in New Jersey on that day. Now, the reporter who wrote that has said since that he doesn't remember thousands of people celebrating, and that's what drew the ire of Trump, who then at this campaign rally mocked the reporter and did an impersonation of what he felt, or how he felt the reporter comes across. The reporter has a chronic condition that affects his joints. So Donald Trump did a rather crude impersonation of what he felt someone who had a condition that affected their joints would look and sound like. Now, it is worth noting on this point that various local officials in New Jersey, as you suggested, have come out and said no such thing happened, that there weren't any celebrations. Yes, according to the governor, the former governor of New Jersey, he also sat on the 9/11 Commission. Yes, there were rumors that there were celebrations, but they're all checked out and none of them proved true.
But Shihab, the question is, what do we make of Trump's popularity in the U.S. despite all these inflammatory remarks?
Well, I think there's several issues here. First of all, I don't think it should come as a surprise to anyone that there's a section of the U.S. population for whom xenophobia, racism, nativism, scapegoating is very attractive. It happens here in the U.S., it happens everywhere. We're seeing it in Europe as well. And in fact, that term nativism is particularly poignant today here in the U.S. because it's Thanksgiving. And I think you'll find no surprise amongst the real natives of this country, the Native Americans, that there's been a long strain of racism and ugliness here. So I think we shouldn't make necessarily too much of that. There is that populist rhetoric that does often strike a chord, but we really need to put these poll numbers into some context. First of all, it's very early in the race. We know from history that most of those who are likely to vote in the caucuses and primaries next year simply haven't made up their mind. They're unlikely to make up their mind and even pay much attention to the race until maybe a couple of weeks before the Iowa caucuses next February. Secondly, the Republican establishment hasn't come out as to who they're actually supporting. We've no idea yet whether that will have some effect on Trump's numbers once they do get involved. Thirdly, we also need to put these numbers into context. About 25% of Americans identify themselves as Republicans. So Trump's poll numbers are 28% off that 25% figures. So that represents about 6% of the U.S. population. And as the noted statistician Nate Silver has pointed out, that's roughly on par with the number of U.S. members of the U.S. who believe that the moon landings were faked, 6% of the U.S. That's not to say there aren't serious issues here. The way that the Republican establishment has pandered to Trump's comments seems to be moving closer to him. Whether that's just a symptom of the primaries, we have yet to see. And secondly, how the mass media, the mainstream media here, is very loath often to correct falsehoods and racism and point it out.
Right.
But that's maybe not that much of a surprise too. But the moral is, look, it's just too early to say anything. Maybe Trump will win, maybe he won't.
All right, got it. Okay, Shihab, thank you very much for that update.